Good afternoon. This is Ann McConnell from the Toy Association. Welcome to today's webinar, Toys and Games in the Age of Screens. The Insights family presents Finding the Balance for Touchscreen Natives. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over. Today's session is being recorded. A copy of the recording and PDF of the presentation will be made available to all who registered. Simply look for an email from the Toy Association. It will also be available on our website on demand. We will have time for questions at the end of the session. If you have any as the questions as the session moves along, please use the Q&A icon on the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit it. We'll get your questions at the end. We do ask that your questions be general in nature, not asking about an individual product or company. Our speaker today is Adam Woodgate, Vice President, Research Solutions at the Insights family. Adam has over a decade of experience at BBC Worldwide and Dubit. As VP at the Insights family, he leads a team of research specialists who provide tailored insights and in-depth reports to keep their clients ahead of the curve. The Insights family is a global leader in kids, young people, and parents' market intelligence, providing real-time data on their attitudes, behaviors, and consumption patterns. I'm happy now to hand the presentation over to Adam Woodgate.
And thank you for joining us this afternoon. Just a little bit to follow on from Anne about our work that we do. We have a near real-time survey of kids, parents, and now next gen, which is the 19 to 30-year-olds in 22 countries around the world. Our survey never stops. So we are actually surveying those audiences right now. We reach around 59% of the world's population and cover nearly 8 out of 10 countries that drive the global economy. And our data is available online all the time. So every day it's updated. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we're going to run through on our webinar today. I want to introduce you to the concept of the touchscreen native, how they are, how they interact with the technology, and how long they do it for. Then we want to have a look at the role of play in children's development. We couldn't be in toys if we didn't talk about play. And then it's engagement with toys and games themselves. Touchscreen natives' favorite toys, toy types, the time they spend, the trends that we can see in the space. And play, well, from a kid's perspective, play is play, whether it's digital or physical. So what's the impact of mobile and console games, and particularly the big three, which I'm sure you know, Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite, what they're having on kids now? A quick dive into parents' spending, and then at the end of the session, before the questions, some key takeouts for you. So first of all, let's meet the touchscreen natives. Some people call them Gen Alpha. Some people call them Generation Glass. Some people call them the ICANN generation. The point about them is that they're the first generation to be entirely born in the 21st century. Matthew Ball, the former head of Amazon Studios, described them as thinking differently because they're wired for interaction. They're wired for creation, for participation, and to be a click away from communicating with their friends, for shared experiences anywhere. The three biggest countries in the world where this generation is being born, no surprise, China and India, but also Nigeria. It's anticipated they'll live longer than any previous generation that's been born, and that many will live into the 22nd century. There's a thought. But they're also the most disrupted cohort that we've had since the war, since World War II. They were born just after the banks almost collapsed. They're faced with environmental issues such as climate change. They were cut off from their friends, from school, from that whole social environment for 18 months to 2 years around the turn of the decade because of COVID-19. Not seeing friends, not seeing distant relatives. That's impacted on who they are. And now post-COVID, they've entered a world where there's conflict in Ukraine and the Middle East and cost of living crises. They've seen family budgets being stretched. But what about their media and technology? So access to cell phones has increased compared to a year ago. You're looking at quarter three, which is July, August, September 23 versus 24 in the dark color. And as I say, access to smartphones has increased across all ages, but more specifically, you can see with those preteen young teens on the right hand side of the charts. Um, Touchscreen natives prefer to engage with the smaller screen. It's personal. It allows them to connect, and we'll talk about why they like that in just a moment. But you can see that it's a battle between the biggest screen in the household and the smartphone as to what they're using, but they're across lots of devices. And when we look at the amount of time that they spend using the devices, you can see that preschoolers, the 3 to 5s, it's kind of flat in terms of their use of the TV. And when I say TV, it's the TV screen, not necessarily the programs that they're watching on it or what they're consuming on it, because a TV these days brings you lots of stuff, not just TV programs. The smartphone has grown, the tablet's grown even more. Then you've got the games console and the laptop both dipping with that age group. But look when you move into the amount of time that 6 to 10s are now spending with those main three screens. Nearly 10 hours on the telly, nearly 9 hours on the smartphone and tablet. And when we look at the older audience, the 11 to 14s, they are driven by two screens and particularly the smartphone. And as kids intuitively make sense of the devices and screens that they have access to, they figure out that every screen has its purpose. I don't know that adults do that, but kids certainly do. TV is primarily video, and you can see this example here on the table where I'm showing you the number one activity on those three main screens that they have access to. And we call it episodes for this, but basically it's TV shows. The tablet is primarily used for mobile games, and that peaks with that 6 to 10-year-old before dipping away. And part of the reason it dips away is the preteens and young teens tend to move over from tablet to smartphone. That was disrupted by COVID when they needed the bigger screen for schoolwork, but it's back to where we were pre-COVID. And the smartphone is very much all about those simple UI games and snackable content. Short form, the smallest screen tends to have the shortest content. Where do toys and games fit into their lives? Well, on a weekday, interestingly, we've got quite a spread. So younger kids tend to peak time play with toys, but you can see they're playing with toys through the day because they're more available. Their older siblings are in school, but younger kids tend to peak with their toy play around the 4 to 6 o'clock time period, that day part. Whereas if you look at the oldest kids, the 11 to 14s, their peak time is early evening, before bed, really. And then you can see everything kind of dips away. On the weekend, there's much more uniformity in the amount of time spent playing. And when kids spend their are playing with toys and games, you can see that the peak is 4 to 6. Clearly, younger children are more likely to play with toys. They're more inclined to play with toys. Older kids, less inclined as toys become, less part of their lives. So, the peak is lower and later, but generally it is that 4 to 6 period. It's a 24-hour day, of which kids spend roughly 8 hours sleeping, or certainly most parents hope they do. There's time for younger kids being in daycare, but older kids probably 6 hours in school, something like that. So then, if you add into that, layer onto that things that they have to do as a family, eating, meal times, that sort of thing, it leaves a certain amount of time that kids have available to them to play with whatever they want to play with. And certainly from a kid's perspective, and I'll come back to this in a minute, that time that they have control of, everything is up for grabs. Everything competes with everything in a kid's world. You'll hear me say that more. So what you're looking at with the line graph is really the last 5 years, and you can see the growth in time spent playing video games up 55%. In that time, we see, a relatively steady growth in the amount of time playing with toys. A bit of a blip last year where it went up, and it's come back a little bit since then. But when we look at the ages across time, we can see that there's been a 77% increase in the amount of time spent uh, playing with video games by the 3 to 5 year olds. They're still playing around between an hour 20, hour 26 with toys and games. With the 6 to 10, it's a 53% increase in toys and games and a similar increase in the amount of time spent with video games. So this age group is the age group that's spending more time playing, whether it's toys and games or whether it's digitally. Whereas the older children, you've got a kind of a doubling of toy time, and we'll come back to the reason we think that that is a factor in a minute. But the 40% increase in growth in time spent with video games shows the digital nature of the audience. So you can see, a sizable chunk of time spent with video games out of their free time in the day. So, quick recap of the touchscreen natives. Never known a world without mobile touchscreen interactive on-demand entertainment. They've got access to multiple screens. So the first generation that's been able to ever curate their own media lives. Previous generations haven't been able to do that because there hasn't been mobile touchscreen entertainment. Their formative years have been disrupted more than any previous generation. And one of the things that we're seeing is, and we'll come back to this in a minute, is kids are sticking around with trusted, familiar content longer. And toy play is early afternoon on and early, and is in the afternoon and early evening on weekdays. So, quick run through on the role of play in children's development, and it is an important thing. Play is something that helps children develop and upskill as they work their way through their childhood and in towards their teen years and through adolescence to adulthood. Um, and play helps them get a sense of who they are in the world. And it's a big catalyst in the development of understanding. And obviously, toys and now video games play a big role in that. So if we look at 3 to 5s, a lot of the play is around problem solving, creativity, but also satisfying that curiosity. When we look at 6 to 10 year olds, they're developing their skills through play. This is when board games and video games really come to the fore because strategy or doing something in a video game that allows them to get to the next level is something they figure out. And it might be trial and error. They keep getting knocked out of the game, but they go back in and start again and keep going forward. So that's really important. They're problem solvers. This is when they build resilience through play. And this is also when um, physically they develop. And often that's outdoor play with friends or with family. As we look at the 11 to 15s, play tends to be about independence, perseverance. Learning also becomes less of the top down, less of the sage on the stage, and much more of the kid actually saying, "I'm really interested in sea life, so I'm going to go and find out all about the different types of sea life." And it becomes a lot more self-propagated. And I think that's why we see YouTube particularly really strong with this audience, because if you want videos on sharks, they've got gazillions of videos. So I think that it's a really important time, and play does feature within their lives still. I'm just going to focus on parents with 3 to 5 year olds because we can't ask 3 to 5 year olds these questions because they're still at their formative years, and when you've been in research a while, you'll know that you have to rely on a parent to tell you about what happens in the lives of the preschoolers because they're still in those really early years. Um, Co-viewing of TV shows is where parents and kids come together, and kids love um, media, entertainment products that facilitate those child-parent moments. I remember before COVID doing research with kids, and they would always talk about the fact that they felt they missed out on parent time. And one of the things that came up during COVID was for those families who were working at home while COVID was on, and appreciate not everyone was, that the kids said, we do stuff together as a family. We go for walks together. We play board games. We have pizza night. And kids really love that. And whilst COVID, I've said, was very disruptive for them, one of the few elements of COVID that they regard as positive was that they did more stuff with mum and dad or as a family. And I think that's something that really drives kids' passion for entertainment. If they can do it with mum and dad or with siblings, they really want to do that. Those moments are really important. So, you know, and the top five things here that hobbies that and interests that parents say they do as a family. I think it's interesting. After TV, you've got play with toys, got being active outdoors. Uh, all of which are up. The one that's down a little bit is playing video games. I think that's probably because parents struggle to be as adaptive as their children are when it comes to the latest video games. The interesting one for me is this cooking and baking. And I think that that's one where a child can see achievement. You know, you put all these ingredients together in a bowl, put it in the oven, away it goes, out pops a cake. And it's kind of like, wow, I've achieved this. Kids love that. I've already said that's all part of the development process. Outdoor activities, playing catch, riding bikes, they're all things that kids love to do. So I think, just giving you a little bit of a recap on why play is really important and where toys and video games fit into all of that, how they all support that. So let's focus on the toys themselves. And so just wanted to sort of run through again, just quickly across the ages and adding in a little more context. And I think, um, as you can see, the downward trend is playing with toys across ages. The trend with video games is up across ages. Spending time with friends changes very little across the ages, but obviously as kids get older and parents become more comfortable, they allow their kids to spend more time online. But even a 3 to 5 year old is spending around 50 minutes a day going online using the internet for their entertainment. And now we look at the top toys with the touchscreen natives. Um, and it's interesting to see, what when you look at these together, what the common themes are. And the headline I've sort of pulled out that action figures and construction toys sort of survive across the ages. And while yes, there's upwards and downwards in trends, um, action figures and construction toys, two things that allow kids to do lots of things, really retain their engagement. I think dolls are an interesting one. I tend to talk about dolls as being less a doll and more of a device or a platform that children can use to express themselves through design and fashion and style. And I think that's certainly something that drives that connection with kids. Toy vehicles, they're about pretend play. Making, looking, reflecting the world around you in your living room. And then we have the plush toys. And I think the interesting thing about plush toys is why they certainly resonate with those slightly older kids is perhaps it's a bit of a comfort blanket at a time when things are a bit of a worry. Your favorite teddy, your favorite whatever, that reminds you of those moments when things were just a little bit more pleasant. I think that's probably why they retain their popularity with kids. And when we look at what's growing, what are the fastest growing toys? The ones that are stimulating the senses or facilitating creativity and imagination seem to be the ones that really are growing rapidly. So an example of that would be squishies. They are a sensory toy, and they've grown. Well, they've surged, I think is the only word we could use, in popularity across all ages. Electronics and digital toys growing again with the younger audience. Not surprising, they've seen mum and dad tapping away on their phones and tablets. Why shouldn't they be part of it? So you've got that essence of, children reflect what they see in the world around them. And what young children see is mostly in home, and that's mums and dads. So therefore, it's not surprising that there's growing demand across those. Uh, they're also gaining traction with the older with the preteens and young teens. Um, And then I think the other one that's kind of interesting is again supporting really the toy vehicles, which is the role play dress up. Again, reflecting the world around you, and bringing it into your home. Card games, again, the challenging of say top trumps or mastery is one of the key drivers for kids having card games and using them. That ability to know what the top 10 cars are or the top 10 sports athletes, and things like that really do drive kids, particularly in that 6 to 10-year-old audience. Uh, and let's reveal the top 10 toys as we see them now. What we do here is we've color coded the top 10 toys across the ages. So you can see at the bottom there, we've got toys in purple, green for video games, blue for television shows, movies are in orange, and other are in kind of that pale brown color. The reason we do that is really we want to see where, you know, how brands that originate as toys are performing versus um, brands that are sort of brand extensions of something else. So if you take Paw Patrol, primarily a TV show, but they've got plenty of toys. Minecraft, a game, but you can now get Minecraft toys. The reason that we've kind of got Coco Melon there and Pokemon in the brown is kids, when we talk to kids, they often give us different ideas as to when and where uh, something originated. The classic one for me is Harry Potter. Depending on the age of the child you talk to, Harry Potter either originated as a novel or it originated as a film. Younger kids say film because they're more likely to remember the films. Older kids say novels, but you can see what you're getting is brand extensions are making inroads into the list of top toys. And if you look at how Minecraft climbs the list as you get older, you can see the power of these big video games coming into, competing with native toy brands. And then this follows on from that, which is where do toys related, what are kids likely to want related to a movie, a TV show, a video game in terms of a toy? And you can see that for the younger kids, movies and TV shows definitely drives toy desire, whether it's a film, like Frozen or something, and kids want the toy, or a TV show like a Paw Patrol or a Peppa Pig or a Bluey, they definitely want the toy. Less so with video games, although still 40% are saying that they would like a toy related to a video game. You can see Minecraft was lower on the list. When you move up the ages, you can see that there's growth across movies, TV shows, and video games with the 6 to 10s. So all three of those are driving toy purchases related to the movie, the TV show, or the video game. And when it comes to the older kids, they're less likely, compared to their younger siblings or younger compatriots, to want products related to a film, TV show, or video game. And in fact, it's trending down a little bit. But we find that the core audiences where toys are being driven from other media, other things, is that sort of 3 to 10-year-old. Now, touchscreen natives gravitate towards products that offer a sense of uniqueness and personal value, yet they remain mindful of parental approval, which is the hygiene factor. So the essence here is that if parents don't approve of it, you're not going to get it as a child. So you've got to get through that kind of parent guardian, parent gatekeeper position. So if your product is familiar to parents, that helps. So heritage evergreen brands that were known to parents from their childhood, well, that's fine. But lots of new products parents don't necessarily know about, but kids are talking about with friends or they're talking about in school. And that is something that parents aren't familiar with. But these are the motivations for why kids want a particular toy or a brand of product. So feeling special, good for their well-being, personalization, upskilling are the key things for 6 to 10-year-olds. And for 11 to 15s, again, feeling good, It makes my life easier, which I think is, is a lot where technology starts to take its place. Uh, they're also at this age starting to develop their personal identity. So not surprising to see that it represents who they are or what they think they are. And then again, good for well-being. So what we did was we decided to have a look at the top toys, or the top toy types, I should say, by some of those criteria that drive kids' purchases or purchase requests. So you can see those that are into the personalization or customization, not surprisingly, like creative toys. You can create whatever's in your imagination. If you've got enough Lego bricks or, whatever, you can replicate the world around you. You can try and replicate your home or train station or whatever. Again, role play and dress up. You can create the characters you want. You can reflect a character you like, or you can make something completely up by mixing and matching in ways that the child never, that someone who made this stuff up didn't think that would go together. We see lots of mashing ups by kids of things that don't necessarily go together and certainly don't make sense to a brand manager, but do make sense to the child. Again, jigsaw puzzles that fits that narrative of being able to make stuff and create stuff and satisfy that driver. If we look at the those who want products that align with feeling good and special, again, creative toys, outdoor toys, we start to see toy animals creep in here. Again, kids love animals, and animals certainly, and wildlife is very much something they're very passionate about. And when we ask them in our survey about what they care about, concerns about animals and animal welfare is always high up on their list. When we look at the older kids, action figures, and this is where they start collecting, because those action figures often do more than one thing. So if they're into WWE, they've got the WWE wrestlers, so that aligns with that. Board games, again, the achievement of winning a board game again makes you feel good, and dolls as well. The ability to customize and express yourselves and design stuff and stylize your figurines is something that this audience really likes. And then in terms of helping build the knowledge, upskill, um, plush toys, not sure about that one, but creative toys, jigsaw puzzles, very much of the of that kind of ilk. Finishing a jigsaw, making something. Again, at the end of it, you've got accomplishment. Toy vehicles, well, you've got the reflection of the world around you, so you can see what toy vehicles do, how they operate. Again, it's an element with the older kids that the vehicles are probably more model-like rather than matchbox size, so therefore they're more model-like, and they're actually able to learn about the elements that go into the vehicles. Jigsaws, card games too. Again, it's about that knowledge, that mastery, that development of a skill set. So to recap this section, preschoolers spend more time playing with toys and games than they do video games. By the age of 10, it's flipped round. Lego and Barbie, top 5 toys for 3 to 10-year-olds. Action figures, construction toys retain their popularity across the age groups. Sensory toys continue to grow in popularity, and I think it's something I'll come to as we wrap up. But certainly, it feels as though sensory toys, which help kids who are anxious, certainly feels like a generation now who have been so disrupted that these have a place and a role that they play. We saw it first with fidget spinners pre-COVID, but now certainly squishies and products like that certainly have a place in a child's life. And certainly feeling good and well-being are key toy purchase motivations amongst that 6 to 14-year-old audience. What about their engagement with video games? We've seen growth in the time spent with video games, both across kids' ages, so as they age up, but also across time. So let's take a look at what drives their engagement with video games. So we ask kids what are their favorite hobbies. And not surprisingly, when parents answer on behalf of 3 to 5 year olds, they talk about arts and crafts. Kids love drawing, coloring, and often will use that as a medium for talking about their lives and their worlds. They'll draw family, they'll draw places, they'll draw animals. They often use their designing and drawing and coloring and painting to act as a way to talk about things that helps them communicate as they're learning their vocabulary. When we move into video games at 3 to 5, they're really simple UI. They're ABCs, one, two, threes, matching pairs and stuff. They're not complex games at this stage, although they're probably uh, watching video games that are being played by their older siblings, and they're also very much intuitive, and they will probably uh, use the time to practice and get better. I'll talk about one of the reasons why one video game works for kids that you might not expect it to. Then you've got play in general, you've got reading, which is declining, you've got swimming is a hobby. Then you can see for the older kids, uh, certainly the 6 to 10s, around a third are saying that playing video games is their favorite hobby. Arts and crafts has grown, and I think that's all about this generation of wanting to create and make and play and design and use both the physical products but also technology to help facilitate that. So we don't ask them what platform, we just ask their favorite hobby. Reading in decline, but both swimming and playing kind of flat year on year. And then with the older kids, again, still an element of arts and crafts, but video games certainly is the number one. Listening to music is number two. Reading and swimming, 4 and 5. So what are the top games? Well, when we look at games, we split them into mobile games. So those that can be played on a mobile device, usually via an app. So a tablet or a smartphone. And then in a minute, I'll show you the top console or online games. So these are the top mobile games. And Roblox will say, if you look at any of the Roblox data, that 75% of play with Roblox is on a mobile device, whether that's tablet or smartphone. And it's a full house for Roblox. They win with 3 to 5, 6 to 10s, and 11 to 14s. At the younger age, we think it's probably co-play with a slightly older sibling. But as kids get into the 6 to 10s, that's when the Roblox time really takes off. And with the 11 to 14s, what we're seeing is not just the play, but because Roblox is a UGC platform, i.e., for a generation that expects to interact with their content, they can go on and they can make, using the Roblox platform, their own little games, whether that's an hobby, whatever. They can make little games and share them with friends. And that certainly is a driver for why audiences love Roblox. It really is the YouTube of games. Candy Crush is interesting. So for 3 to 5s, it's very much a matching game. You match the sweets. And for 6 to 10s, it maintains its engagement really because uh, there's a reverse mastery. Kids really get Candy Crush, whereas parents tend to struggle as adults. We sort of aren't as intuitive necessarily as some of these things. And you have this thing called reverse mastery. Normally, mastery is something we develop with age. We learn how to do something with age and can accomplish it. Whereas what you get with Candy Crush is this thing called reverse mastery, where the kid actually tells the parent or the grandparent how to get to the next level. And kids love that, being able to tell their parents what to do. And then for older kids, the number two is Minecraft. But you could see in this list, we've got some brand extensions. You've got Blue for television shows. So you've got Nickelodeon apps or Nickelodeon games, Paw Patrol, Mighty Pups creeping in. We've got a couple of movies in Minion Rush and Five Nights at Freddy's for the older kids. And we've got Pokemon there too, which, as we all know, started as a game, but kids think, depending on what kids' first touch point was, it could have been an app, it could have been a game, it could have been the TV show, it could have been the trading cards. So you have different with Pokemon itself, you have different perception of what the entry point was. And then you've got Barbie, a stalwart and really, able to push its age up with away from the core kids audience, with its games. And so we have those additional brand extensions on the list. As we look at the top console games, it's more of a mix of the established franchises and the gaming platforms. So we see Mario as number one for 3 to 5s, Roblox as number one for 6 to 10. Sorry, Minecraft number one, 6 to 10s, Roblox number one, 11 to 14. And then you've got sort of Minecraft and Roblox vying for second place, depending on their age. And then creeping in as kids get older, Fortnite, which always had a slightly older skew. You will notice some older games in the list. You know, you would probably spot Grand Theft Auto and think, why are 3 to 5s playing that? We don't think they are. We think it's more of a case that they're co-viewing or watching an older sibling, and it just happens to be recorded that way. Um, there's things that we kind of call the kind of cuddleware, where you've got that child and elder sibling moment where they play together, and maybe the older sibling is doing a little bit of the teaching themselves of how to basically play the games. So you can kind of see that. So we think that that's co-play with older siblings. Again, you've got a few brand extensions, not as many. You've got Barbie, Hot Wheels, Lego, and Spider-Man creeping in. And why do kids play games? I could put this chart up for toys as well. For the number one thing is the reason that kids play with toys is because they're fun. The reason that kids play games is because they're fun. And I think that that's the key motivation driving video game play. But it's not the only motivation. Whilst we've got a decline with the 3 to 5s in the social aspects of video gaming, hanging out with family, hanging out with friends, it's still the second and third reasons why they play. Learning is also there, liking the characters. With the older kids, you see that social element so much more important. I think, games have moved on. They're much more collaborative and social playing entities than they were when they were all about leaderboards and collecting coins. Uh, so, and particularly that 6 to 10-year-old, it's about hanging out with friends and with family. So again, if you're thinking about the toy play, what can you do that really drives those moments that bring the family together, that facilitate sibling play or parent-child play? And then with the older kids, again, the top reason for playing is because it's fun, hanging out with friends and family, are 2 and 3. And you notice it's flipped around there, whereas friends becomes more important than family. But if you've got experience of teenagers, you probably would know that. And when we look at the reasons they played the three, what were in the day called the metaverse games, now I just call them game platforms, is the fun element. And you can see the over index that Minecraft is fun, Roblox is fun, Fortnite is fun. The big over indexing here on the fun play. And that's why they're attracting lots of time with kids. But what else? That social element, Minecraft, spending time with friends, spending time with family. Roblox is interesting because its number 3 item is want to get better at gaming. So one of the things that we think Roblox is really good at is actually, driving the use of the ecosystem, but also upskilling kids. And if you remember earlier, I talked about the importance of kids feeling that they're engaging with something that builds their skill sets. They get better at something. I've often talked about the gaming YouTube loop. When a kid gets stuck in a game, when they've run out of all the things they can think of, they'll go and watch a YouTuber who talks about that game, who will help them get over that hurdle, and then they go back in the game, get over the hurdle, and they carry on. And so there is this toing or froing between YouTube and games because you have this virtuous circle, because YouTube allows them to learn how to do it if they can't figure it out for themselves or they haven't got anyone in the house that's already achieved it. So, a recap on games. It's a favorite hobby for more than a third of 6 to 10s, 2 in 5, 11, 14s. Roblox, the top game on mobile. Super Mario, Minecraft, and Roblox, the top PC console games amongst 3 to 5, 6 to 10s, 11 to 14s, respectively. Across ages, it's fun. is the main reason for playing video games. It's fun is also the main reason given by kids who play Minecraft or Roblox or Fortnite. Just finally, before we wrap up, I just want to show you what's happened with kids, with parents spending on two elements of kids' entertainment. Now, we capture data across all parents' spending, and certainly, post-COVID, spending habits have changed. COVID skewed things in certain directions. I still think there is some dust settling from what happened. So it looks like spending on video games and toys kind of peaked a year or so ago. And if you look at where we are now, for 3 to 5s and 6 to 10s, we're kind of back to where we were in 2021. So we had a little blip, it went up and it's come back down. The only age group really where it's still higher than it was in 21 is those 11 to 14s, both for toys and games. And if you bought toys that are specifically made for an older audience, you'll know that often the price is higher anyway. So you can get a sense that that might be driving that, but also video games, as parents invest in their kids' entertainment. So to wrap up, some key takeouts for you. The first one that I want to really focus on is just this whole dynamic of how evergreen toy brands are enduring in their appeal with kids. Of course, they're trusted by parents. They've been adapted to remain relevant in today's world for today's young audiences, and they've expanded their engagement across multiple platforms. So we've seen Barbie moving into TV series, live action movies, Hot Wheels TV show, Crayola toys and film, TV and film. But the key thing about these is, we're seeing that aging up as well. And I always talked about brands that kind of satisfied that 6 to 10 audience, that 6 to 10 audience. I think in America they're called middle graders. They've always had one foot in preschool and one foot in adolescence. I think the problem post-COVID is we're seeing this generation of kids who are a little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit more fearful of what's going on. And so, you know, toys and games that they've played as kids just having more life with them because they're reminding them of those times when they spent it with mum and dad, or they're reminding of times when they played with a younger sibling or a cousin, and they're memory jerkers and they're kind of a reassurance of what was, and they're sort of kind of that comfort blanket without overstressing it. So, and I think also you've got the element that evergreen brands, just are trusted because parents played them. So, and as the cycle goes round again, as brands, continue to have a long life and hit that generational cycle, and the next generation becomes parents, then we'll see another group of brands move into that trusted heritage evergreen sort of place. I talk about consumable product versus brand experience. And this is where, I like to think of that many of the toys that are successful are they either align with kids' personas or what sometimes I call archetypes. So what a kid likes, some kids like to express themselves. Some kids are all about mastery. Some kids are all about discovery. Some kids are all about social. And those toys that facilitate that or align with that seem to have their enduring appeal. So Barbie, it's a toy, it's a platform for expression. Candy Crush, platform for mastery. I've talked about that. Or they align with children's play patterns. So Play-Doh aligns with kids who want to be creative. Hot Wheels, those who want to do pretend play or bring the real world into their living room. And then there's those that satisfy other motions for engaging with entertainment, such as Lego stimulating the imagination or Minecraft about exploring and discovering. So I think that, those brands that are platforms seem to offer more to the kid than just the single consumable product. However, there are examples of where they're working. Squishies is the one that I'll bring to the fore because they're satisfying a need state. So they do a specific job. So talk to them about here, fine motor skills that squishy support, or the sensory play that Squishmallows bring to the table. And then the last one, really, I think, and that's the one that I want to kind of finish on for now, which is, uh, traditionally kids would get bored of the familiar. But I think what we're seeing is, as as we're in this post-COVID world, there's a new appetite for it. Familiar and comforting. And when I use the word entertainment, think of it in its broadest sense. So it's not just TV shows, it's not just video games, it's anything that entertains kids. So that's toys and games, going to the movies, all those sorts of things. So familiar and comforting entertainment and experiences that don't ask kids to take on risks right now that they're in no mood to take on seem to be the places where there is success at the moment. Uh, there is also the fact that I think there is a need that kids want entertainment and experiences that help them self-develop. This upskilling I've talked about, and there's much less emphasis today on this external markets of success from a kid's perspective, and probably a parent's perspective too. Good grades, okay, still important. They get you into life, but the kids also want to know how to do something. What sets them up for the future, those skill sets that allow them to make something or fix something or get through something. And so I think liberating and empowering experiences that give kids the confidence to carve out a personal identity also, are appealing to kids right now. So Roblox in the game space certainly is an example of that. So I think that, uh, toys that can support children's needs right now and their emotional states are going to be really important. And I have to say, that brings us to the end. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. And Anne, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam, for this very interesting presentation. We do have a question in the queue. Um, didn't necessarily address it, but perhaps you have the information from all of the research you do. With the rise of touchscreen natives, are we seeing more kids' toys related purchases coming from something on YouTube or content creators also?
Yes, we are. And I looked at this in depth, a little while ago, which was it was always traditional that TV would drive, TV advertising would be the big driver of toys. Um, and was it a case that YouTube or YouTube influencers could do that? Could other platforms other than those 30-second spots on Nickelodeon drive uh, kids to talk to their parents about things for their birthday list or a wish list or whatever? And yes, YouTube can do that now. YouTube can do it because they've, built a place where kids go where they know they can have that digital experience of effectively shaking the box in the toy store and feeling how heavy it is and the noise it makes. They can see their favorite YouTuber doing that and doing the opening the bag. And so yes, so I think we are seeing much more of the ability of YouTube to be a channel that can drive the purchase consideration and the conversation in the home.
Thank you. And just to add on that, you mentioned YouTube. What advertising platforms, in addition to YouTube, are most effective to reach kids and parents?
uh, TV still massive, especially TV to parents. There is a trend that we've seen where, Lego are advertising on Food Network. You're seeing other toy brands advertising, where it relates to, or maybe sports channels, because whilst the child has the pester power, at the end of the day, parents has the final decision. So, and in a lot of research that we've seen, advertising is critical for affirmation. In other words, yes, there is a product on the supermarket shelves, but if it's on billboards, if it's on TV, if it's on a number of places, it does drive parents to think that actually it must be a thing. And so it's useful to be, on those platforms as well as having that kind of below the line strategy with YouTubers or with PR or using social channels to connect with parents, because obviously copper regulations prevents direct under restricts approaching under 13s. So in that sense, yes, you have a diversified media strategy to kind of reach the audiences that you want.
Thanks, Adam. There is one more question with respect to the Roblox data that you showed. Is it based on logins/visits into Roblox in general?
So our data is based on kids telling us the games that they play. So we ask them, do they play video games? And then we ask them which games they play. So it's less of the passive data collection that you might see reported by Roblox themselves when they do their quarterly statements, and much more of the child saying, or the parent on behalf of their child saying, this is what we do when it comes to playing games.
Great. And there's a second part of that question. Do you have any data on particular games being visited the most in Roblox among those different age groupings you showed?
We don't actually. No, we only go high level, but we do and in 2025 we're planning to kind of do some deep dives into the game sector, so we can look at specifically which games they're playing in Roblox and in others. But at the moment we just keep a very top level macro view of the gaming market. But it's something that we plan to add.
Okay, and one final question based on your presentation and your research. What are trending IPs that folks should keep their eye on based on your research?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that I mean, I've talked about this for a while. I think what we need to be cognizant of the fact that with 25% of kids saying that they discover a new brand or piece of content in a video game, uh, we are going to see the next big movie or the next big TV show, maybe not just in the near horizon, but certainly on the horizon. We're going to see them originating certainly from the game platform. So if we think back, who'd have thought when YouTube launched that YouTube would launch a whole raft of brands that kids engage with? Ryan's Toy Review, Coco Melon, Blippy, Gabby's Dollhouse. Who'd have thought that they would be right up there? Uh, so I think if we, I talk about Roblox being the YouTube of games. I think it's inevitable we are going to see the same thing emerge in time from a platform like Roblox or even Fortnite, created maybe in the older space. So in terms of IPs to watch right now, I would say there's nothing big growing, but you are going to see the entrenchment of Bluey, particularly in the US within the preschool space, Gabby's Dollhouse. You're going to see more stuff originating through the fast channels like Cartoon Channel or from Pocket Watch, because they are trawling YouTube to look for the new sort of the next big thing that's on YouTube, and then they are obviously bringing them over. I do think you should watch out for things uh, possibly less IP and more sort of content led, such as Magic. I think that's going to be a growing genre. And I also think that anything that gives kids the upskill, I think there's a real market for, at a basic level, how to change a light bulb. And I appreciate we don't want kids touching electricity, but that's the closest element of, or how to boil an egg. Again, we don't want kids touching boiling water, but it's those basics, it's the curiosity, it's the how. I think kids have got a real interest in that. I think that's something that somehow we need to find a safe way to do it.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, in your research, other than YouTube, do you get feedback from kids on their use of Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok?
We do. Yes. I mean, when you look at kids, and I have to say, whilst this is, and I appreciate, I'm presuming here, maybe it's presumptive that people watching this will be, sending products all around the world. And this presentation has been absolutely US focused. Uh, what I would say is, yes, YouTube is by far the number one social platform for kids. TikTok very much in many markets is number two. Not every market, but then it varies by markets. So if you take France, Snapchat is huge in France. But you'll get Instagram big somewhere else. China has, of course, all its own raft of social platforms. As we move into Asia, we start seeing some brands that only really exist in Asia. So in the messaging space, obviously it's WhatsApp for much of the world, but WeChat is huge in Asia. So I think it's hard to be homogeneous about a lot of these things because yes, there's the standouts like Roblox and YouTube, but even in Asia, Roblox is up against Zepeto, which is a similar platform. So, there are differences, but yes, I mean, we have to. I mean, I know that kids shouldn't be on social media under 13, but they are. And with parents' consent on many cases or on a family account. So, they use it and it's part of their lives and it facilitates their connectivity. Um, so I do think, yeah, but it does vary, as I say, depending on the country.
It's 2:58. We have time for one last question. Your report shows that children prefer creative games and love crafting, and construction sets are at the top of the list. Are they the same thing
Um, well,
from how you're reporting it?
no, not necessarily. Arts and crafts would be sort of like, your Crayola is the typical brand that you might want to associate with arts and crafts, but also, I don't know any brands in America, forgive me, but in the UK we've got Hobbycraft, so that would be a store that kind of person would go into. Whereas construction sets at the preschool level are probably Duplo and Mega Blocks, but they're more like Lego or Stickle bricks. For those slightly older kids. So there is a distinction, but of course, you know, drawing and painting, you can use your imagination. You can use your imagination with building blocks. So I think that there's a lot of bleeding across, the products that kids use to satisfy their motivations and who their personas are.
Great. Well, I want to thank you very much, Adam, for this great presentation and deck. And of course, I want to thank all of our members who joined us this afternoon. And as I said, a copy of the recording and PDF of the presentation will be made available. So again, thank you for the presentation and thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of the afternoon.